bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50-plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good Monday morning, Eagle fans. How are you? Hopefully all is well. Hopefully you had a happy, healthy, and safe July 4th weekend. Glad to be back on you here with Birds 365. You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. J-Mac, how was your 4th of July lengthy weekend?
Spectacular. Neighborhood stuff. Trying to be the block captain for all that.
Really?
That's my wife. I try to stay away from everybody as much as possible. But yeah, it was nice to get a little respite. Got to get some reps. 3 weeks away from first practice. 3 weeks from yesterday.
Right.
Eagles
Less than 3
report.
weeks now.
Now they report, but the first practice, we're 3 weeks away from the first practice. So getting close. The clock is ticking.
And quick story, and then we'll talk football for 2 hours. Where were you at approximately, I guess it was around 5:40 yesterday, somewhere after 5:30, slightly after 5:40, when the monsoon came through South Jersey?
Trying to get little flags. My wife puts these little flags in the front of the house, trying to get them up before the monsoon blew them away. So it's about we got some. You got something on there, Jody? I don't think it's me, but I hear something in the background.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is either. Yeah,
we got
got to be
Tom
something
Brady.
on my end. Let me see if I could lose that. Don't know exactly what the problem is. Let's see if
Could be an ESPN tab if you got that open. They play.
Yeah,
that
the only
video.
tab I got open now is our show. I'm not sure what it is, but I will try and fix it. But where were you when the monsoon hit?
I was trying to get stuff up so it wouldn't blow away really quickly. Then there was we had a second monsoon. We're both in South Jersey, but a little ways away from each other. So we had a second monsoon sort of overnight. So yeah, storms were pretty bad. It's been that way for a while though. And in between, you still got the knuckleheads with the fireworks, man. They didn't stop. And now, as a dog owner, I'm not a big fan of fireworks, so
Understood.
I freely admit that.
The fireworks weren't bad in my neighborhood, but my daughter came back up from the shore, got a ride, and she needed a ride into Philly. So she asked me to take her into Philly, and she lives in Fairmount Park, which is close to where they were going to have the fireworks display. So I had to have to take a different road in than I usually did. But, oh, my God, we had to pull over on Route 70 here in South Jersey. It was raining so hard, the windshield wiper couldn't get the water off the front of my windshield fast enough. And pulled over in a little strip mall, which I knew was on a bit of an angle, because you could literally see waves going down Route 70. the height on the middle of the road was up to the middle of cars. And I luckily got off in just enough time, not even a third of the way to my daughter's house in Philadelphia. And we just sat there for a half an hour. Couldn't move. It was just the entire roadway was underwater, and we had to wait for it to stop raining first, which took 20 minutes, and another 10 minutes for all the water to just drain off the roads. It was nasty out there. If anyone else got caught out in it like I did, thankful that you're good enough to be in front of your computer and watching us here on Birds 365 yesterday, because I literally thought my car was going to float away with me and my daughter in it.
I've been there. I've been there. Usually after a Giants/Jets game coming back on the turnpike for some reason. And I'm that knucklehead that tries to power through at all costs. It's probably better to do what you did and just stop and let it blow over. That's probably the right way to do it. But yeah, man. When they and Route 42 for the people in South Jersey, that bloods. When those things blood, yeah, it's best if you have a place to pull over, just pull over.
Just get over. I don't know that I've ever done it for rain before. I've done it several times for snow where I said, yeah, you're going nowhere fast. Get the hell to the side of the road, put the blinkers on. But yesterday was a little bit scary. But we're glad to be here on Birds 365 today because, as John noted, less than 3 weeks to the opening of camp. 3 weeks exactly to the first practice, or should we say the first athletic gathering, because I'm not sure the Eagles actually practice, but I might be mincing words here. John, before we get into what we're looking forward to, looking back, you made it over to Milt Williams and Zach McPherson's 7-on-7 camp. How did that go the other day? I saw you put some social media posts up on it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was also eye-opening because, you know, I think I say it all the time. You know, innovation trickles up because people in the NFL tell me that, and you know, even more so to the college level. It starts at the high school level. That's where the real innovation is going on. And boy, these kids are so advanced, Jody. I mean, and Rob Kessner, who's producer for NBC 10, does the Eagles stuff. He's going to be on the show later in the week. He was there. I give him a lot of credit because he's done a lot of high school stuff over the years for NBC, and he's really plugged in on those guys, who's good, who's not good. And he was telling me about this kid from Roman Catholic. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, to be honest, I'm, you know, kind of half listening, and I'm sure he's good for a high school kid. Unbelievable, Jody.
Really?
Unbelievable. His name is Samaj Beals, for those who know local high school, from Roman Catholic. He's already got an offer from Alabama. He's a sophomore, and he's got an offer from Alabama, which I checked out is completely true, completely legit. He's got arm talent that is unbelievable. And you know, Rob's kind of
going into his he's finishing up his sophomore year this year. So next year he's going to be a junior.
Yes. Now he's very slight and he looks like a sophomore. He's not ready physically to play at a high level. But, you know, evidently all these high-level high school programs, they go around and play these 7-on-7 tournaments, you know, basically weekly. So, you know, when you talk about the quarterbacks and the receivers and defensively the corners, they're so much more advanced than they used to be. They're playing these things like a traveling baseball team all over the place. And I was talking to Zach, and he was like, DeMatha wanted to play, but he wanted to keep it small and local. This is the first time they've done it. So there are 3 South Jersey schools and Roman Catholic. But in the future, they want to increase it. And, you know, there's IMG Academy, which is famous now because everybody Nolan Smith went there. Kids travel all across the country to finish their high school careers there. St. Joe's Prep here is sort of turned into that. but I mean, the advancement of these kids at a young level is, I was in awe of that kid particularly. There's like NFL throws, and he's a sophomore in high school. It was, and you could see, like, why is Alabama snipping around this kid? 10 minutes after I saw him throw, I said, "Oh, okay,
That makes sense."
yeah." But it was pretty eye opening, because people have told me that for years. But I don't watch high school football. I haven't seen high school football in years. I don't know what's going on at the high school level. I don't have time for it. Yeah, it is. It's amazing how advanced things have gotten in the passing game, which kind of explains the evolution at the NFL level.
Yeah, since my daughter graduated from high school almost 10 years ago, I haven't been following high school football since. When she was in high school and some of her buddies were on the team, we'd go over for the Friday night games here in town, walk over to our high school. I haven't paid near as much attention either, but this 7-on-7 stuff sounds like it's a great way to develop at least skilled position players. And
well, that's the thing. And, it also makes sense why NFL teams always
– why the hell was Milt Williams there? Yeah, does anybody block on 7-on-7?
Well, Milt was joking. By the way, Milton apologized for missing the show, but
did Zach apologize for missing as well?
I don't think Zach knew he was booked for the show. Milton knew. He came up with a big hug and apologized, so it was legitimate. And he flew in from he lives in the North Texas area, much like one of our producers.
Soon to be. He flew in and flew out for this particular tournament. Now he wants to set up his own near Frisco, Texas, and he and Zach have the same agent, the same marketing firm. They happen to be drafted by the same team. They worked out together before the draft, before they knew they'd be teammates, obviously at the pro level. So, he was just there to support Zach pretty much. And he was joking. It's been a while since he played 7-on-7, but he did play 7-on-7 back in his younger days. And that's what I was getting at. The NFL people also say, and this is where the Eagles have the huge advantage with offensive linemen. Everybody complains there's no offensive linemen. There's no offensive linemen. And when they are, they're pretty raw, and you got to develop them at the pro level. It's because all they're doing is playing 7-on-7. But that's all they're doing at the pro level now. True.
With the Eagles.
That's all the Eagles do.
Yeah. So it's really difficult. And even the teams that do the normal team drills and mini camps and OTAs, it doesn't help the offensive linemen because there's no contact. They can work on their footwork, I guess, the positioning, things like that, a little bit. But if you take out the contact, so that's for training camp and when the pads come on. But that's explains the dearth of offensive linemen. And, when the Eagles get offensive linemen, develop offensive linemen, that's why they do it. That's why they value it so much, because they're really, really hard to find.
Oh, then you would think it would have some effect on the ability to play defensive line too, both inside and outside. Outside, you can at least work on your speed and tap the quarterback on the bum, because you're not allowed to actually hit quarterbacks in any of these drills either. Seems to have less of a negative effect on them, and they're not really doing it either. But I hear the point you're making about offensive linemen. All right, J-Mac, we got our buddy Mike Gill making his usual Wednesday appearance coming up in just over 5 minutes from now. So wanted to get this in. This is the season of lists. Everybody's got their lists. Nobody's playing. Nobody's doing anything. 3 weeks till camps open up, so everybody's putting out a list these days, as are you and Eddie K from Sports Illustrated. 25 top 25 Eagles heading into the season. We got to add some names because we were off Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. So when last we were on your list, you were at number 15 with Fletcher Cox. He was your 15th ranked Philadelphia Eagle. Your next four include two DBs, Avonte Maddox 14, Brandon Graham 13, James Bradbury 12, and Landon Dickerson. Man, as he moved up the list pretty damn fast at number 11. You got Bradbury and Avonte Maddox both in the top 14. You still got a DB yet to go on the outside. You and Ed think highly of the Eagles cornerbacks this year.
Yeah, well, how could you not? I mean, they were both Pro Bowlers. Slay for the 5th time last season. Bradbury, second team All Pro for the first time. I mean, those guys were just unbelievable. And they kind of, Slay had the great first half. Bradbury had the great second half. And they were, it's one of those things with Slay specifically more than Bradbury. He had the great first half and kind of fell off a little bit in the second half. I think everybody kind of blew that out of proportion because just, the old bringing up all the time, the regression to the mean, you can't play at that level. You go back to the Justin Jefferson game. He shut down the best receiver in football. That's one of the best cornerback games I've ever seen. It's one of the best cornerback games I've ever seen. Then you add the age into the equation. People are scared. 32, going to be 31 on New Year's Day next year. At some point, it's going to slope off. So I'm not trying to say that's not going to happen. But when you look at the Eagles' corners and include Avonte Maddox in that, it's as good as it gets in the NFL right now.
I would say they have the best threesome in the NFL as well. I put out my 25 since you guys did yours. I had Maddox at number 15 was the last one we did before taking the long weekend. I had Fletcher Cox at 14. You had him at 15. We had the same two guys just in reverse order. I had Carter higher than you did. You said you and Ed wouldn't go any higher because he's never played in the NFL. I guess I'm doing a little bit more projecting to put him at 13.
And you'll probably be right, by the way, because I'm very high on Jalen.
I know you're high on the player, but I wanted to keep it in a specific kind of do something on the field first before being projected. I gave him a little bit more slack. I got Dallas Goedert at number 12, and you guys haven't had Dallas Goedert on your list yet, so we know he's in your top 10. I had him at number 12. And, yeah, I got Slay at number 11, who you have higher as well because you haven't gotten there. I do expect a little bit of a drop-off from Darius, and specifically last year, you mentioned that game early in the season against Minnesota. I thought you actually saw regression over the course of the year. And when you do get in your 30s, that is something you keep a tight eye on because it's just human nature that the older you get, the less productive you are. Mother Nature starts to take over. Your body just isn't what it used to be. I'm not saying that Slay's going to get burnt for a whole bunch of touchdowns this year. I think Howie Roseman played those cards like a master this past year. Just enough information out there that the Eagles could release the Slay. He got nervous. He got worried. Open market. His agent probably shopped him. Wasn't going to get the kind of dollars that the Eagles were at least offering in a renegotiation to get his cap number down this year and then tack on the future years. And before you know it, boom, Slay's got a new contract extension with the Philadelphia Eagles at what seems to be a very fair rate. Some of these reindeer games that Howie Roseman plays, he's just phenomenal at. And doing the Darius Slay contract was one of them. Yeah, I do think we're going to see Darius Slay as not one of the top 2 or 3 corners in the league, where he has been at times during his career. I don't think that's in the offing anymore. And I have a Eagle cornerback yet to get to on my list that I have in my top 10 that you guys just floated out there. So we'll see how the quarterbacks actually play themselves out, but we still agree that the Eagles have the best threesome as far as 3 cornerbacks go, the best threesome in the National Football League. And I don't know if the team that's second best is even close to that.
Yeah, it's a good group, and Howie went into that process thinking he could get 2 of the 3 back, 2 of the 3 secondary players, and it kind of toggled back and forth. I think a lot of people assumed Slay would be 1 right off the bat because he was under contract, but they were just going to have to renegotiate that contract. So as things fell, I think early the Eagles thought Bradbury would be priced out of their range. All of a sudden, he comes back at a decent number, and that changed things. And then CJ held. If CJ would have accepted the offer, Slay would probably be in Baltimore, to be honest. But CJ was upset and thought he was disrespected. And the Eagles said, all right, we're going to try to work things out with Slay. Remember, he and his wife said goodbye to Philadelphia. I mean, they were out the door on the way down south, I-95 to Baltimore. They were out the freaking door. And Howie's like, all right, let's revisit this. And they were able to work something out. And that's because CJ wouldn't accept the contract offer. So it kind of worked out the way it worked out. They wanted to get 2 of the 3 back. They got 2 of the 3 back. I think the original assumption was it was going to be Slay and CJ, and Bradbury would be out. And then it turned into Bradbury and CJ, and Slay would be out. And ultimately, it ended up to be Slay and Bradbury. And they kept the cornerback group together. And they got 2 of the 3, which is what they expected.
And now the question.
And by the way, the 2 best players, too. CJ's splashy, but not nearly as consistent as Slay and Bradbury. Different position.
The only thing CJ has going for him is a little younger than Bradbury and Slay. So they took the more veteran route. But you're right. The guys who projecting coming into the season, probably the 2 best of the 3 players. We shall see. He's John McMullen. I'm Jordan McDonald. We are Birds 365. Good to be back. Hopefully everybody had a great, nice, safe, after yesterday's rain. Oh my God, that was scary. A long holiday weekend. We're glad to be back talking Birds football with you. We will get our buddy Mike Gill from down the shore up next to help us add to the Birds conversation here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Eagles.
You got Mac and Mac here with Young Birds 365 on this Wednesday morning. If it's a Wednesday morning, it must be a Mike Gill morning. He's giving us a little taste of both his coffee and his backyard. Looks nice out there. What are you donning for the T-shirt today, Mr. Gill?
Old Faithful, baby. Yeah. Old Faithful.
Yeah. Back to
now,
Westford.
what conference are they in again? Because everybody keeps changing. Are they in a new conference this year?
No, they're still in the Big 12, sadly. I'm trying to get out of there, man. Big 12 kills me. I can't do a lot of travel during the fall, so I haven't been able to go to a road game. And although they are at Penn State this year, they opened the season at Penn State.
At Penn State. Is that going to be a whiteout? Do we know?
I don't know. September 2nd, Happy Valley, and then next year the game's in Morgantown. So they play Alabama one of these years to open up the season. So there's some nice non-conference stuff, but the Big 12 schedule is tough for an alum to get to.
I just saw. I think Penn State
up against Alabama. How do you not know what year that is?
I think it's 2025. 2024, 2025. I think they have a home and home with Alabama, or maybe it's in one of those like in Charlotte to kick off the season.
Yeah,
one of those things.
It's early, but I don't like their odds for that one, Mike. I'm gonna go. I don't like their odds for that.
No,
one.
The football program has taken a tailspin with Neil Brown, but put out a lot of Eagles there for a while, right? They had a bunch of them in that one little draft.
You got Wendell Smallwood. We got Rasul Butler. A bunch of
Gibson.
What was Shelton Gibson? I forgot Shelton, the great Shelton Gibson.
Kaiser White was a Mountaineer.
Yes, he was. So was his brother, right? Both his brothers, I think, were West Virginia, but I'm not 100%. They the pipeline from Macungie to West Virginia there. Yeah. Doing it well. West Virginia's been a good team over the years, but college football now it's 5 teams and everybody else. Let's be honest. Unfortunately, and that's part of the problem in my estimation.
Anthony Beck,
local
guy,
head
Anthony
coach.
Beck, the St. Louis, Battlehawks head coach. He was a Mountaineer.
Yeah, is that who he was coaching? The St. Louis Battlehawks, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
And that's the big attendance draw in the XFL. The St. Louis people trying to prove they deserve an NFL team, which they had one. But hey, if you don't sell out the Stan Kroenke, you're going to lose your NFL team. That's the moral of that story. But let's get it closer to Philadelphia, Mike Gill. 3 weeks away from the first practice now. It's list season. Jody and I were just talking about it. Ed Kratz and I are currently in the midst of our top 25 Eagles, but list all over the place. One of them I saw was our buddy Randy Mueller, who's often on the show, former NFL Executive of the Year. And he was running down the top weakness of the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's ironic because another friend of the show, Eric Edholm, was doing one of his lists and top overrated concerns, as I guess how he stressed it. And they were in diametric opposition. Eric thinks it's way overblown, the coordinator changes. Randy thinks it's a big deal. On that scale, where is Mike Gill?
That's a really good one. Man, I think the coordinator change is interesting because the last time we saw this happen in the Reid era was when they had issues, when they started plucking coaches from Andy and you didn't have that continuity on the staff. You did see a dip in this franchise in the Reid era, who, is a very good head coach, well-respected, but you can only handle so many defections from your staff before you start to, feel it. At first, look, I'm not a John Gannon hater by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think John Gannon was this horrendous guy. You're not the number 2 defense in the entire league by having a guy who's an asshat, right? He has to have some idea what he's doing. I said often, on this show, every player on that defense, literally almost every single one, had their best year of their career ever last season. So I think the defensive coordinator switch is going to have some sort of impact, if not only because the defense is going to have so many different faces on that defense. So either the new coordinator won't be felt as much because he has so many new guys to kind of deal with, or he's going to go through what Gannon did the first year, where, hey, I just have a new defense. I got a bunch of new guys, and they're all learning this defense. The offensive coordinator who's been here knows the guys. I have no idea. Is he going to just install his own offense, or is he going to keep a lot of the same principles of what we've seen? I guess that remains to be seen. And if that's the case, if he just kind of keeps everything, I would imagine that the both coordinators are not as big of a deal as maybe, I guess, Randy Mueller believes they would be.
I'll tell you why I think you at least have to, going into it, believe it's a big deal. We've never seen Sirianni switch coordinators. He's only been here 2 years.
Yeah.
Had the same two guys for both years. Until you see a coach handle a transition of the guys who are in charge underneath them, you don't know.
Yeah, very fair.
We can all speculate. Oh, Nick is a guy. Is he a guy who really has his hand on the wheel, even though he's not calling plays? It's his offense. It's all about him. It's not going to change. Or is he the kind of guy who says, listen, I'm putting you in charge. I'm giving you the reign. You do it your way. We don't know. He says that he has faith in his coordinators, so we take him at his word, but we're not in those closed-door meetings, in those sessions where they're breaking down film and coming up with – we don't know yet. I think without knowing, you have to think it's a pretty big deal because we have no evidence to judge by previously. That's why I would say it's a pretty big deal.
Well, what's a bigger thought in your guys' mind? The fact that there's a new coordinator, or the fact that there's basically a completely new cast of characters on defense?
Yeah, well, that would be my concern. Offensively, because Jody knows I love Shane Steichen, tremendous respect as a play caller. But I mean, it's Nick Sirianni's offense. He's an offensive guy. They're only replacing two starters on offense, and you know, Miles Sanders and Isaac Seumalo, very good players. I'm not trying to downplay it, but they're changing 5 defensive starters, and it's not only Gannon. If you did a coaching depth chart, they lost the top 3 coaches on the defensive side: Gannon, Denard Wilson, Nick Rollis. They lost a bunch of guys from the coaching staff. So I think just the turnover alone makes it more difficult for the defensive side, plus the head coach, as he acknowledges he's involved. He wants certain things, but he's not a defensive guy. So
now, John, do you concur that when Andy started to lose coaches, not just coordinators, that had something to do with the team's downfall, or was it coinciding with lack of talent?
Well, they did a good job for a while, but yeah, once you lose as many coaches as they did, it starts to have an effect, no question about it. And talent's a big part of it as well, let's be honest. And Nick says that, show me good coaches, I'll show you good players. You can only do so much with a bad roster, but you don't even have to go back to Andy. I mean, you could argue the Eagles weren't the same after Super Bowl 52, after losing Frank Reich. A lot of people have said this, and John DeFilippo. Only one coordinator, but a very important position coach as well. They had trouble moving on from those two guys. Yeah, I think it's a bigger deal than I'm more if and I love Eric and I love Randy, but I would lean more towards Randy Mueller. I think it's a bigger deal. I don't think it's an overreaction to say. And by the way, I think the Eagles have hinted at this, Mike, by they in essence created a new layer of the coaching staff with Marcus Brady and Matt Patricia, senior offensive, senior defensive assistants. Those roles didn't exist when Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon were here. That at least makes me raise an eyebrow a little bit.
Well, if anything, it shows, I guess, in all sports, we love to blame the coach. Everybody loves the basketball coach is always the worst. There's never been a good basketball coach in the history of basketball coaches. They all stink. The manager in baseball, he's always at fault. But the football coach probably has more hand in a win-loss in a given game than any other coach. And I think the Eagles are showing the importance of coaching just in football by adding even just more guys and just saying, this is your title. We just want your mind in the building. You're not in charge of the linebackers. You're not in charge of the defensive line, the corners. We just want your defensive intuition in our room and help us out here. So I think it is definitely showing the importance of how much teams value what a coach can bring to their team.
And it's so difficult to try and judge because it's not necessarily hands-on. John and I both sit here and go, we like CEO head coaches. We like guys who manage the coaching staff rather than the hands-on play calling, play in, play out, overmanage every snap and the like. It's a talent and it's a skill unto itself. And I think Nick Sirianni has flashed it pretty damn well these first 2 years.
I have one of those weird memories, and I can remember a time, I believe it was John with Krause, who JAKIB here runs the whole thing, used to host a show on our radio station. And I remember, I think it was you, John, at the time we're doing the show with Mosher. And Peterson was the coach. And I remember Krause asking almost weekly whether Peterson had too much on his plate. Should he be more of a CEO coach? And this is, of course, they're going through a 7-9 season. Well, then the next year they won the Super Bowl. So they might have been 9-7, or 7-9, and then won the Super Bowl.
7-9. No, they were 7-9, but 7-9 with a rookie quarterback who was the rookie coach quarterback 10 days before the start of week 1.
And a rookie coach. And the question, I think, to you guys, John, was, is there too much on his plate? Should he be more of a CEO coach? I think it's different for everybody. How much can you handle? Some guys, Jody, you know this probably, you work with a producer. Can they multitask? Can they answer the phones while they're editing a piece of sound? Can they get you a story? Can they do multiple things at one time? Some guys can multitask. Some guys can't. Now, you would think someone at the NFL level, once you get to that point, that you are of ability to oversee everything and do it all at one time. Maybe that's just not his skill set. Maybe it is, but I think everybody's a little different.
Yeah, see, I think it's an ego thing. If you come up on one side of the ball and you're the play caller, offense, defense, whatever, you get the head coaching position. Well, I'm not giving that up. That's me. That's my strength. That's what I do. That defines me, my ability to call plays. So they don't want to give it up when they become head coach, even though at least
I think you're both right. I think sometimes it's ego. Sometimes it's everybody's different, like Mike said. And Doug, because I talked to Doug about this a lot, he just loves it. Play calling. I mean, that's his favorite
that's his
part
ego
of the job.
telling
him that he loves it.
The guy's a 13-year NFL player. He didn't have an ego. He didn't. That's what I'm saying. He and by the way, he ended up giving up play calling. Just nobody knew it when he was struggling in the last year. Rick Scangarella was here and Press Taylor, and they were handling 2 minute. I think Rick had 2 minute. And Press had red zone stuff. And he said, all right, we're struggling. Let's see if we could do something different. Didn't work. They just had a bunch of injuries and had a bad season. But he just loves play calling. The guy doesn't have an ego, Doug Peterson. Now, some people do. That's what I'm saying, Joe.
I don't think you can say that of anyone who's ever coached in the National Football
big
League.
Ego.
Anyone who gets to the level of head coach in the National Football League has an ego. Come on, John.
Everybody has a little bit of an ego, but there's levels of ego.
I guess we all look at what ego is differently, right? Yeah. We perceive someone with an ego to be a jerk off for the most part. Exactly. I don't think we looked at Doug as a jerk, but internally,
I think Andy Reid's got an ego. Does that make him a jerk? No, it makes him a time winning Super Bowl coach.
Right. There's a part of what everybody great as well is sometimes is that they have an ego, but they don't let their ego affect the people around them.
I probably said that wrong. Everybody has an ego. I have an ego. Jody has an ego. Mike Gill has. Everybody has some. There's a difference between the normal level of ego and the massive Josh McDaniels level ego.
Not letting your ego overtake the room.
Yeah,
and you know,
exactly. And I never got that feeling from Doug. But I say it all the time, and that includes Doug. I would prefer a CEO coach. I'm not changing that, but I just never got the thought that Doug Peterson wasn't giving up play calling because of his ego. That's all I was trying to say.
Well, I always ask the question when people are hiring a head coach, what makes whoever hires the head coach, the owner, the general manager, team president, whoever makes that decision, what makes them think because a guy is some offensive wizard that he can call a great game, that he is capable of running all 53 men? I always find that to be an oddity of, well, you're such a great play caller. You've got to be a great head coach. We have to hire you. And it's like, oh, just because you call a good game, what do you know about defense? What do you know about running special teams? What do you know about bringing the offense and defense and the special teams together? I always find
and you know what, Mike? It's such a cliche in the NFL. I've heard it a million times. If you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. If you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. And they all hire schemes. Not everybody, but nine times out of 10.
75 to 80% of that is offense. It's scheme first and offense. Dominating
that's why I said,
if you're a defensive coach, you are minimizing your chance to get a head coaching spot in the NFL with every passing year.
And that's like, you know, I guess it's more philosophy. These owners want offensive philosophies running their team, but you know, you almost want a guy who is a defensive-minded coach who goes out and finds some guy who's some offensive, creative guy because he knows his limitations on that side of the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, instead of hiring an offensive guy who's going to probably be a play caller as well, you would almost want the defensive-minded coach so that he's out of the offense and brings in somebody who has a really smart mind on that side of the ball.
Yeah, you can do it different ways. And, you know, for instance, I mean, you know, we'll see how it works out in Miami with Mike McDaniel, and he brings in Vic Fangio. In theory, you know, Vic proved he's not a great head coach. He proved it, but he's a really good defensive mind to the point everybody wants to copy what he does. So now you have the offensive guy and the defensive guy. Let's see how it works out. Maybe it works out really well. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it and have success, as people have proven. But if you want to give me $6 billion, and please do, I'm going to hire a CEO coach if I'm buying it. That's the way I'm going to do it. You know, that's what I believe in. Doesn't make it right.
Mike Gill, I haven't touched on this. We're 43 minutes in the show, and you haven't touched on the issue du jour in not only the National Football League, not only here in Philadelphia, but the entire NFL. It's just a bigger deal here in Philly than in 30 other outlets that have NFL teams. Mike Florio, Pro Football Folk.
I'm glad you got to this, Jody, because I was going to go the conspiracy route. I think Mike Florio is tweaking Howie Roseman. That's my conspiracy.
You think it was a Howie shot, huh?
That's my conspiracy.
For those who don't know what I'm referring to, it probably happened on Friday, so all weekend was floating around and up till today. We're now like 4 or 5 days behind the story, but Mike Florio, who I'm a fan of, and I think
West Virginia guy, by the way.
That's right, WVU guy. Used to come on my show. Then he became too big a deal. I can't do little Jody McDonald show anymore. But I still love his stuff and his website. Although it's gotten a little carried away, and he just created a new website, which I don't understand. I hate friggin' change. You got a great way to give him, but don't go fancying it up where people have to figure out how to use your website, you idiot. But anyway, I digress.
I totally agree with the website. The whole NBC, Roto World, all of it. They ruined it.
Yeah. Well, I think those decisions are above Mike's level. I don't often defend Mike, but I'll defend him there. I think that's above
then
his head.
he sold his soul to the devil, and he's paying the price now. So I won't give Mike any slack. But anyway, he posted either Friday or Saturday, whatever it was, that the NFL has come out with a private story to explain the problem with the field in the Super Bowl this past year. That it wasn't the NFL. It wasn't the people in charge of the field. It wasn't the George Toma, the turf god, or whatever his nickname is, the god of sod or whatever. It was the fact that the Eagles and the Chiefs had the wrong cleats on. That they didn't come out and test the field well enough and get the exact right cleats. Even though many an Eagle changed cleats 2 or 3 times during the Super Bowl to try and find the right cleat for the slippery mess that was the field. The NFL, according to Mike Florio, the king of conspiracy, is behind closed doors for anyone who asks, have advised all of their owners, if anyone brings this up with you, tell them it was the teams, the Chiefs and the Eagles, that had the wrong cleats rather than the field was a sloppy mess on your biggest game of the year, NFL. John says he thinks it's just a complete throw in the face of Howie Roseman because those two don't.
Well, I'm partially joking. But I do think, because Howie called him a conspiracy theorist, I mean, if I'm an Eagles fan, and I've said this, Jason Kelce, right? Who's the most popular Eagle? Jason Kelce. Get the fuck over it. I'm sorry for cursing. That's what Kelce, I was trying to bring it up. For me personally, I never want to acknowledge that somebody else or something else has control over the outcome. If I'm truly a competitor, that shit's on me. Nobody, you can't blame the San Francisco fans for whining and then turn around and whine and complain. It was a crappy field. Both teams played on the crappy field.
Right.
The Eagles outplayed the Chiefs and didn't get it done. They didn't make a play in the second half. That's it.
Well,
Turn the page.
Did this all just come up because Graham said this, I guess, with Derek and the other day?
Well, that's what Jason said.
Because it hasn't been brought. The Eagles, I think, to their credit, did a good job not saying anything about it, to the point where you're like, how could you be so tight-lipped? The field was disgraceful. Now, you could say both teams had to deal with it, but obviously the Eagles all season long, when you have 75 or 78 sacks, you lead the league by such a large margin, and then you get none. It seems that affected what happened in the game. Now, you're right. Both teams had to deal with it, and the Chiefs, for whatever reason, it seemed it affected less than the Eagles, but that would tell me that the NFL should be completely embarrassed by the product they had to put out on that field.
That's a different conversation. I'm with you there, because the NFL's too concerned about the Super Bowl show and all that halftime show and all that kind of nonsense. I'm with you there.
Yeah,
but I'm not with this. Woe is the Eagles because the field was crappy, and that's why I point to Jason Kelce. And everybody who takes it his way, which Jalen Hurts as well. I mean, everybody, if you're playing the NFC Championship game in Green Bay, right, you got to deal with it. You got to deal. They build that field. They build that for the Green Bay Packers, not anybody else. So if they get the number 1 seed and it's crappy weather, hey, deal with it. Or lose the game. It's the same thing. Was it the most positive feel for the Philadelphia Eagles compared to the Kansas City Chiefs? Probably not, because the Eagles' strength is not exactly matched up with a crappy field.
The only caveat to that would be you're playing on their field because they earned it. You're supposed to be on a neutral site, so these things should be neutralized so that it shouldn't affect.
Yeah, but then you get down into the weeds of. We'll bring up another Kevin Kincaid, friend of the show, another West Virginia guy. I saw Kevin. We got to get Kevin on because Kevin and I usually agree on most things. We disagree on this. He was talking about George Toma alerting the Kansas City Chiefs. The guy's 94 stinking years old. You think Andy Reid's taking a phone call from Georgetown? Oh, Andy, here's your big advantage.
Not a bad one. It's not a bad theory.
I cannot. I can't get it. And this is where Mike Floyd, I can't get into these stupid conspiracy theories. I can't. Did it help the Chiefs? Yes. That's different than a conspiracy.
Has Toma done the field in previous Chiefs Super Bowls? Do they have some sort of relationship?
Yeah, he used to work for him, I guess.
Oh, there you go.
Well, that's I mean, that's like back in the days where, Chip Kelly used to talk about this when people would come into and talk about things like sports science, and those old school coaches say, "Get out of my office." I don't agree with that. And Chip's like, if your answer is we do it this way because we've always done it this way, it's wrong. Mm-hmm. You should listen to people. I'm all on board with that. The conspiracy stuff, and that's why I bring up Mike Florio. It helped the Chiefs because the Chiefs weren't built the same way as the Eagles. Okay. You got to overcome it. And they did for the most part. They were very competitive. They were in the game. They had the best player on the field. It was 38-35. Both defenses couldn't stop anybody. And the only difference between, and this is something Kevin and I agree on, the only difference between Super Bowl 52 and Super Bowl 57, the Eagles made a defensive play. In 52, they didn't in 57.
By the way, in that game, if there was more of an advantage for the Chiefs than the Eagles, because the Eagles speed rushers, you're trying to put a number on it. Over some period of time, you got to be able to figure out and adjust. And I'm not saying maybe the field keeps you from being able to be 100%, but the Eagles lost the second half. So if you want to say that there was an imbalance in who it affected more, well, it should have affected everybody less in the second half. And in the second half, the Chiefs were actually the better team. That's why they went ahead and ran the game.
Yeah, by the way, Jody, you bring up a good point. What the hell happened in the first half when the Eagles didn't have the right cleats on? They beat the brakes off them. And if it wasn't for the fumble, the game would have been over. And they still had the same crappy cleats on, and they beat the you-know-what out of the Kansas City Chiefs. It doesn't make any sense at any level. Except the conspiracy theory.
So Mike, John thinks it's because he's trying to pimp Howie Roseman. Why does Florio even go there? Do you think he created this thing out of whole cloth? That he got a whisper somebody in the league that I heard this guy tell a league owner because a league owner asked about this. Why does this even come up at this? We're in July. We're getting ready to open up camps. We're now 6 months, for at least 4 months, 5 months removed from the Super Bowl. Why does this become a thing? Why does Florio go there?
I literally, again, I go back to when Graham said something, it's the first time I've heard, and then I guess Chauncey Gardner followed it up and agreed with him to some extent.
Yeah,
so
Chauncey did, yeah.
In the middle of the summer where, we're at the time, you're like 4 weeks from camp. Hey, he just said this. I'm gonna, throw it out there that, the field wasn't on the league. It was on you, buddy, who's talking about the offensive line is lucky that field was a mess. Well, no, if you would have put the right cleats on, maybe he would have had a different outcome in the game. It's just a bizarre situation. I can't even believe in July, 3 weeks from camp, that you're right. This is all resurfaced because it's a horrible memory. It's one of the worst. I mean, you think back to the game and you don't want to talk about it because we're all like, well, everybody played on the field. But the fact that the game has that caveat to it in the background, it really sucks for that game. For both sides.
Well, that I agree with. The NFL should be ashamed of themselves. They got to do a better job. And if it's going to come down to that, just have it indoor facilities. I mean, if you can't figure it out.
They did have an indoor facility.
Yeah,
they chose not to use
it. It's indoor-outdoor, but, it's not the same as the conventional dome.
Well, the fact is this. If somebody in the league said, let me go to Mike Florio and try to get this message out there, I don't know. Is Mike Florio the biggest name in that in that field?
I'm telling you, Howie called him the conspiracy theorist, and now he's trying to tweak Howie.
So that's what I'm saying. The league goes to him because they know that something so preposterous would fly through him. In other words, if I put this out through Dan Rappaport, it's not going to be believable. If I put this out through Adam Schefter, it's not going to be believable.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Well, in the NFL, now, to be fair to Mike, the NFL is, they want to cover their own crap ass and say, oh, we didn't make a mistake. The NFL made a huge mistake with the field.
Right. But it was 4 months forgotten. Why pardon the pun, why unearth it again at this time? No, don't do that. Why?
I go back to, I think, Graham bringing it back up.
Yeah, Brandon did bring it up.
Yeah,
he
did. My producer.
I think that's more of a Philly thing than a national thing. Did that get national attention, Brandon Graham's quote, or a lot more?
A little bit, I think.
No, that I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was more of a Philly thing. All right, Mike Gill, I take it you didn't make it over to CIO at all last week, did you?
No, but I saw plenty of the pictures. My old producer, James Seltzer, there got his ass whipped by Jason Kelce. I did see that. It looked like a great event. I heard they did like $150,000 before the doors even.
Oh, they're at like $400,000 now.
Well, I'm saying before the doors even opened, they did 150. He's got something going there, man. And you mentioned it, John. You think about this. I was off on, I guess, Monday, and my producer was filling in for me, and I was in the car at 4:00 when we do football at 4, and they were talking about, lists ranking the fan bases or something in Philadelphia. I said, how many different sports football fan bases can name the center on their team, let alone him being the most popular guy on the team? How about the backup center? I mean, people here, Jody, you know this. I mean, I go back to when I interned for you guys, and people would talk about, well, who's going to be the backup center? Who's going to be the second string guard? What fan bases are having that conversation? It is, and it's just so apropos that Jason Kelce would be the most popular Eagle on a team that went to the Super Bowl a year ago and won a Super Bowl. It is so apropos, and he fills the role just perfectly.
He does.
That's a Kelce thing more than an Eagle fan thing. The guy's he's a guy flat out gets it and knows how to be part of the community. And I just think he's that good a dude. And we are so lucky to have him as the center of the Eagles and the face of the franchise for a very long period of time. Mike Gill,
real quick, Jody. How many offensive linemen can embrace that role and perfect it? Some of them are just, they don't like it. They don't want to talk. They want to be behind. Now, you get every rare one that wants to be the ham, but they're a ham and they don't handle it right. He handles it to perfection. He handles that role and hits it out of the park.
Doesn't matter what position he plays. We know he plays center, but he's got that kind of personality. He's got that kind of mindset. That's why.
And by the way, the Eagles got 3 of them. They got Lane and Jordan, who got the personalities to handle it. Not to Kelce's level, but they offensive linemen, not only are they good, but man,
is Maaddi going to start taking over for the sensational Soul Cruisers or what, man?
Yeah, that dude is a Pro Bowl. That's what I tweeted. He is a Pro Bowl level left tackle, and he missed his calling because he's a better singer than he is a left tackle. He is, and for people that saw, Jordan got married over the weekend, I guess, in Maui, and clip of him singing, unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I saw the clip and the sensational Soul Cruises are big down the Jersey Shore this time. They were down at Kix McNutley's on over the weekend.
McNutley's.
There you go.
That sounds like a.
I went down to. I saw Colin Thompson Sunday. I went to his celebration.
Nice.
Down in Cape May.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And you know who I ran into was Matt Rule was in attendance.
Really.
Nice.
He was. Terry Bradway, the former Jets GM, was in the house. So it was a nice little party for Colin, who's in town for the week.
Very nice. Matt Rule going to have to get on a big old jet plane and get out to Nebraska pretty damn soon. Good to see he's still got his roots here on the East Coast. Mr. Gill, thank you very much. We always love Wednesdays when you jump aboard. We'll do
At
it
Mike
again
Gill show. Very popular with the listeners, Mike. I used to get a big ego. We were talking about ego because I was very popular on Mike's show. Now Mike's very popular on my show. It all comes around 180.
So on, John.
Thanks much, buddy. Looking forward to seeing what T-shirt you have on next week. That's Mike Gill here with us on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac, Birds 365. We still got an hour left to go. We got a good hour because Rob Maaddi's going to join us in about 20 minutes. So stay right here on Birds 365.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. That makes us Smack a Mac here on Birds 365. Yes, a week getting underway. Hopefully everybody had a great, lengthy 4th of July weekend. We thank our boss, Joe Krause, for giving us a couple extra days to get rested and relaxed before a long football season, which we're now less than 3 weeks away from Eagles camp when it opens up. Johnny Mac, when it does open up, there are going to be a bunch of positional battles. Let me get one particular one on the table to debate today. As Mike Gill just said, who's the backup center? Who's the starting center? Who's the backup center? Some fan bases more into it than others, and we know how diehard Eagle fan base is. But it doesn't matter which team you're talking about. Everybody likes to debate the quarterback position. You never want to debate the starting quarterback position. You want to have that guy locked in, sure, ready to go. And we know that that's the case here in Philadelphia with the kind of season Jalen Hurts had this year. And we believe Marcus Mariota is going to be the backup. He came here to replace Gardner Minshew, who decided to join his buddy in Indianapolis, Shane Steichen, and maybe be the bridge guy to lead into Anthony Richardson. But the third string quarterback, which remember, we haven't discussed this in a while. The NFL redid its rules this year because of basically one game. That would be the NFC Championship game, in which the San Francisco 49ers, and yeah, I put this on John Lynch. You cut him more slack than I did. You said he went to his first string got hurt, second string got hurt. What do you want the guy to do? To have a better option than Josh Johnson. That was a joke. Josh Johnson being a quarterback in a conference championship game should never happen. So the NFL, like me, probably overreacted and said, we're redoing the rules. If you've got your third string quarterback on your 53-man roster on game day, you are allowed to put him in. Even if you don't activate him, you are allowed to put him in as an emergency quarterback. It was a rule that was in place for years in the NFL, and for some reason, they did away with it. I'm not sure exactly why they did, but they rightfully have brought back the emergency quarterback. So last year, Ian Book was on the Eagles roster all year, right? He never got they never opted him down.
Yeah,
he was
a part of the roster, picked up on waivers, off waivers from the New Orleans Saints. The Eagles value that third quarterback, and so did San Francisco. San Francisco was down to the fourth quarterback, so it is what it is. I mean, you're screwed either way. Is my only points with if you're down, because if we look at who's going to be the third string quarterback, I think that's where you're going. I think there's a legitimate shot for each player. I think the Eagles will default to the draft pick, their draft pick, even though Ian Book was a higher draft pick, but they'll default to their draft pick this year if it's even or close to even. It's typically how they do business. But then if you think about it, and even if you get Ian Book through waivers, put him on the practice squad and keep four quarterbacks, if you're down to Ian Book in the NFC Championship game, you're not going to be in good shape.
Ian Book better than Josh Johnson.
Yeah, probably.
That was my whole rub last year. We've seen Josh Johnson, I think, has been on every team in the NFL twice. And some 3 times that he is such a traveled veteran.
But Ian Book was the third string quarterback. This year, he would be the fourth string quarterback if that worked out the way. Remember, Brock Purdy was the third string quarterback. They were already down to the third string. So it's Brock Purdy versus Ian Book, which I know you're going to give the edge to Brock Purdy there, and you should. I mean, Brock proved a lot of things. Typically third string quarterback. Typically you're screwed when you get to the third string quarterback. That's why what San Francisco did was so amazing. Fourth string, that's where I get look. In that instance, maybe San Francisco, you remember all the stories, maybe they were hopeful Jimmy Garoppolo could play in case of emergency or whatever. Otherwise, you can bring somebody off the street. I don't know that helps you. I don't know what else you can do. If you're down to the fourth quarterback, you're in trouble. You should have been long gone with the third quarterback, to be honest, and they persevered. So they deserve credit for that.
Yeah. I'm throwing a flag and calling it roster mismanagement on John Lynch. It wasn't like Brock Purdy became the starting quarterback that week. He had been the starting quarterback for 7 weeks leading up to that game. And in 7 weeks, you couldn't find a better quarterback than Josh Johnson. Yeah, you should have been able to. So you and I will disagree on that. I will hold the GM accountable for not having a better option. And because you're right, on that given day, he was the backup. He wasn't the fifth string. He wasn't the guy. Yeah. You've already gone through Lance. You've already gone through Garoppolo, whether they could or couldn't have played. On that given day, you have to have a better option. If Brock Purdy gets hurt, than Josh Johnson. They didn't. So this year, at least they'll have a third string option to be able to step in and play on game day as an emergency starter. You said you think that if all things are equal, Tanner McKee will be the guy because they drafted him. Is that the right line of thinking? They were able to scoop up Ian Book off waivers. The Saints didn't protect him. The Eagles protected him all year. So at least they made that commitment to him. If it is equal, you think it's McKee just because of what have you done?
Well, I think if it's equal.
Year?
I think Ian Book, if he outplays him, he'll win the job. I think, which it should be, as a third string quarterback. You kind of saw it, like Carson Strong had the leg up to be the third string quarterback last year. He was awful. I mean, if Tanner McKee shows up and he's awful, they'll go in a different direction. They had Reid Sinnett as well last year. He was not much better than awful. That's why they went out of the organization to pick up Ian Book. And, we haven't seen either of them. I think Ian Book better fits this offense. He's got some movement skills. Tanner McKee's a more of a traditional drop back passer. So you would have to change the offense if you were down to playing him. So how comfortable do the Eagles feel with that? They claim they're comfortable with it. And it's not that big of a deal. So but I do think it'll be a legitimate competition. I'm just saying if nobody significantly outplays the other, and it's basically, if you have 14 days of training camp and it's, Ian was better in 8 days than 6 for Tanner McKee, I think that's the part where it gets a little shaky. I think then they probably default to McKee because they drafted him, which I don't agree with. But if Book significantly outplays Tanner McKee, they're not going to keep Tanner McKee because they drafted him. They cut Clayton Thorson because he was awful, and he was a 5th round pick. So they'll cut Tanner McKee, but I think he has the leg up, the default leg up because they drafted.
How much of the decision do you believe is shaped by who they think they can most easily get through to the practice squad? That if they still like both guys, someone may play slightly better than the other, but pretty damn close, and they got to make a call. One's going to be released and hit the street, and they can try and woo them back to the practice squad as much as they possibly can, but everybody's going to take a job. If somebody says, we're going to make you our third quarterback, then whoever they cut, McKee and or Book, is going to go to that team that's going to give them a full-time NFL check rather than a practice squad check here. But how much do you think the decision is based on who they think they can get back to the practice squad because they don't get a job on somebody else's 3-man?
Not much, because if you think, you're keeping 3 quarterbacks. So if you think somebody is susceptible to being claimed off waivers, you're not going to risk it just because there's, maybe you say, well, McKee's got better arm talent. And maybe somebody will claim him, but Book is a better player, and try to get Book through the practice. I don't think they would do that. At that level, I don't think that comes into it. And I also think that's overrated, and people kind of forget every year. They're like, the Eagles are so deep, they're going to claim 6, 7 people up. Never happens. Never happens. Because, you have to understand, every other team has 90-man rosters.
Right.
And they're working with their own young players, and they're in the system, in their particular schemes. And they like them for that reason. Then they've been working with them. And they're just going to take some guy who they know nothing about, who they haven't worked with, and say, oh, now if it's a significant upgrade from a talent standpoint, yeah, you'll probably see 2 or 3 Eagles claimed off waivers at the cut down because they're one of the deepest teams. But it won't go much deeper than that. It won't be this groundswell. And they've been caught. Brett Toth, I always mention, they thought they could get him through to the practice squad, and Arizona claimed it. But even that was a unique situation because he was coming off the deferment, and they changed the rule. He lost a bunch of weight, and the Eagles were like, well, he's got to get in a weight room. He's not even ready to play, so nobody's going to take a shot on him. So there were all these extenuating circumstances even to that. Whereas Jordan Mailata is the exact opposite. They were concerned that somebody might pick him up, and they said, all right, we're just going to stash him on the back end of the roster. For 2 stinking years, they did it because they didn't want to risk losing him.
Yep.
They don't want to risk losing a player. They're not putting them on waivers.
And that was the exact way to handle Jordan Mailata, as we now see by the results. All right, one more quick question, then we'll get a break. Then we'll get our buddy Rob Maaddi from the AP up here. Since we're talking about third, fourth string quarterbacks and the like, Eagles coaching staff, they got a new quarterback coach this year. The old quarterback coach is now the offensive coordinator, and they hired a first-time quarterback coach, but a recognizable name who's in the league for years. If there's anybody who can determine what you need out of your third or fourth string quarterback, might be Alex Tanney, because he was that for such a lengthy period of time. But being one and coaching as one can be a different story. Know that Sirianni has talked him up a blue streak to this point, that he has fit right in and become a member of this staff, and that he seems to be comfortable in his new role. It is a new role. It is an updated role for a guy like Alex Tanney. Should we have any questions about the Eagles quarterback coach this year?
I don't think so, because, he was there, similar to DK McDonald. He was the assistant to Denard Wilson. Alex Tanney was the assistant to Brian Johnson last year. So he was in the room already with the quarterbacks. So they're very familiar with him. He's played for a very long time. I always make that argument. It's like, oh, he's got no experience. Well, he was in the league for, I say it more about Josh McCown when people would say, how could you give this to Josh McCown? Well, he played for stinking 18 years in every scheme under the sun. He knows a little bit about playing the position. Same with Alex. And, you don't know until they do it. But I think, Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts are so close. I think Brian's still the de facto quarterback coach anyway with the number one quarterback. Then maybe it becomes a bigger deal with Marcus and Ian and Tanner McKee. And, by the way, Alex Tanney, former teammate with Marcus Mariota, when he came into the league, the two are as thick as thieves. So I think that helps as well.
And Tanney, not quite the level of McCown, 10-year veteran in the league, not a almost 20-year veteran. There's a little bit of a difference, and Alex never even achieved the level of McCown did. McCown was a backup basically his entire career, but at least he did play some. Tanney did a lot of clipboard holding, but that's a valuable experience for being a quarterback coach. We'll see if he's up to the task coming in this season. And when you've got your former quarterback coach as the offensive coordinator, you know that they're going to be working.
And the history says backup quarterbacks tend to be better coaches than starting quarterbacks, because they, it was some of the great quarterbacks, like, they don't understand why people can't do what they can do. And, the backup quarterback understands, hey, it's not that easy. You got to do this, you got to do that. So, it's like backup catcher in baseball. They're great managers. Backup quarterbacks, they tend to be good coaches.
We'll see if Alex Tanney gets the job done for the Birds in that role this year. All right, Johnny Mac, coming back. We haven't had Rob Maaddi on in about a month. The lead writer for the Associated Press covering the National Football League. Philly guy at heart, even though he's living down there in South Florida these days. He'll always be a Philly guy to us. Rob Maaddi, Associated Press, up next here on Birds 365.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac and Mac here with you on Birds 365, waiting on our boy. There he is, Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. Oh, apparently is out and about. He's getting out in the car. We're
It's
ready
nice.
to punch him up here.
Where is he? Are you up here or down there, Rob? Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Florida, guys. How are you guys?
Yeah. Doing well.
Very good.
to see you, bud.
Yeah, the sun looks like Florida to me from there. Yeah. Not that I can judge the sun in its car. But where are you going in Florida? All right, we've established you're in Florida. You going to get Dunkin' Donuts or what?
No, I'm heading to the gym after a 3-week, 2-week, whatever the heck it was, vacation. Man, I gotta get in the gym. Yesterday was July 4th. It was not a good eating day for me. I in there immediately, like ASAP. First thing I did was wake up. I'm ready to talk to you guys. I'm heading over there now, and then I got to get filled in on everything I missed in the world of sports. Like it was the first time I actually tried to shut off as much as I can.
Nice. Yeah, you need to, especially with the grind coming. It's coming up quick, Rob. So you need a little rest.
Yeah, I feel like it's the end of summer. You're going back to school. You're going back to football. So it's coming quick. All
right. So this will be perfect today because you understand the game. You're dedicated as you are. We can get a litmus test from you because, as you say, you kind of took a big step back the last couple of weeks. So this is just feeling off the top of your head. I love it. NFL and gambling suspensions.
Ooh.
Johnny and I have talked about it plenty. John's got more of a burr under his saddle than I do because he thinks that the NFL has mishandled it. I think they needed to be harsh, but I do kind of agree with John. Could they have done suspensions before they got could they have done fines before they got to the suspensions? The NFL in their stance, as harsh as it's been, necessary evil because they have to show that they care about this stuff. Does it point up the hypocritical nature of their relationship with all these gambling sites? What do you make of the NFL throwing out these suspensions as harshly as they are?
I agree with the harsh suspensions because I think the integrity of the game is so important that you can't at all in any way show that you're being lenient here. However, my concern is this: what if it's a significant play? How are they going to handle that then? Right? So far, like, nobody cares about Isaiah Rodgers being suspended for a year. So far, James Williams is the only player who is a significant type player who's received the suspension. And I know Calvin Ridley last year got a full year. But what if there's a quarterback? What if at some point they find a big name, a really big name superstar? How are they going to handle that? They're going to have to handle it equally as and be that tough and difficult and give a 1 year and suspension. But here's the problem. Players are claiming they don't understand these rules and they don't know what you can and can't do. It's pretty simple. Just don't bet on football. That's all it is. We've known this forever, guys. You don't bet on football. My problem is, why do you even allow players to bet on any other sport?
Well, that's where Jody mentioned, and typically, Rob, I'm a guy who defaults more towards the NFL for reasons that most of this stuff is collectively bargained. So the players already had a chance through the union to work out these penalties and things of that nature. Why I've kind of shifted here is twofold. One, you brought up, and that's the fact that, you're allowed to bet on NBA games as long as you're outside of the team facility, outside the parking lot. Can't do it in team hotels and all that kind of stuff. There's so many caveats to it. And let's face it, sometimes we're talking about 21, 22-year-old kids who got this in their pocket all stinking day. And all you got to do is hit a couple clicks and you bet $5 on a basketball game. Oh, but you did it in the team facility. Look, if you bet on NFL games, I got no problem with it. But if you bet $5 on a parlay in basketball, but you did it in the team hotel or the parking lot at a team hotel, and you're getting suspended for 6 games, I got a problem with that. There's got to be a room for some common sense in these types of things. So maybe you go to the kid and say, hey, dummy, you can't do that. And if he does it again, then you hit him hard. I just think there's room for some common sense. Am I wrong because of the CBA?
That's understandable. That, I understand if you're allowing them to bet on a basketball game or a hockey or baseball or whatever it is, and you're doing it. But why bet? Now, I understand it's a gazillion dollar industry, and the FanDuels and the DraftKings and all of them are going to, and PointsBet, Fanatics now are getting in the game, and they want people with money to have some action on there. But if you are the NFL, you're already you got these deals. You want to make it easier for your players to understand no betting, period. Bottom line, no betting, move on. When you're done playing, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. But for the 3 years you're in the league, for some of these guys, the 1 year you have an opportunity for whatever it is, no betting. Now we have no problems. Nobody has any issues with the potential integrity of the game. I think it's so important to maintain that, because this question has always been out there. People have always, every time you see something crazy happen, it was fixed. It was fixed, which we know isn't the case. But there potentially can be that issue at some point. So why waste $5 on a parlay for basketball, or $50, or whatever the equivalent of $50 is to you and me? It might be $1,500 to some kid with making $950,000, whatever it is. Just eliminate betting, and you won't have any of these issues. Nobody can complain. Nobody can say, I woke up all crabby coming back from vacation. I don't want any kind of issues like this.
The reason that John and I disagree here is maybe I give the players a little bit more credit. They're supposed to be 3-year college kids, minimum. You can't come out. You talk about 20-year-old kids in the NFL. Friggin', there's 18-year-old kids in the NBA who never set foot on a college campus. You went there for 3 years. It's not that hard. You can't bet on NFL. You can't bet on anywhere tied to a team facility, hotel, whatever. Bet at home. You want to bet the NBA, you got to be at home. I think the kid should be able to figure that one out. That's just me. But I give him credit to be able to understand the difference between what you can and can't do. All right, Maaddi, man, we're less than 3 weeks before camps open up. Who's the most pressure on in the NFL this year? What team?
I want to say Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. When that trade goes down, when he's brought in to be the savior of a franchise at this stage of his career, the way things shook out in Green Bay, and there's some pressure when you're 39, 40 years old and you got to go in and win right away, because you look at the landscape of the NFL. Even if you're the Chiefs and you're Patrick Mahomes and you're Joe Burrow in Cincinnati and Josh Allen, there's some pressure, I think, in Buffalo too, Jody. I think they got to prove that they can go to the next step, the next level. The most pressure, the first thing I would point to is there's high expectations in New York. It is New York, even though they play in North Jersey. It's Aaron Rodgers, and I will point to him and say he's got to come in there, and they got to win, and they got to be a Super Bowl contender immediately. And I don't know that that's going to happen in that loaded AFC, but I would certainly point to him as the guy and the team with the most pressure.
Yeah, I would just tweak it a little bit, Rob, and say that, Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh under a ton of pressure. Aaron Rodgers, man, he's just going to have some ayahuasca. He's going to be fine. There's no pressure on that guy. Yeah. There are a number of high-profile veterans still out there. We're about 3 weeks to camp. Most notably, probably the biggest names are Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Hopkins still. But there's a lot of other guys. Zeke Elliott's still out there. I mean, Jarvis Landry, we talk about here a lot. The Eagles needing potentially an upgrade at wide receiver 3. Yannick Ngakoue still out there. We know last year Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph waited and sort of did that ring shopping. Did Howie Roseman, I've been talking about this, Rob, did Howie Roseman create a new market in the NFL for these veteran players who've made a lot of money? And, they don't want to pay for the veteran minimum. They don't want to go through the grind of training camp and OTAs and the off-season work. Are we going to see more of guys like Linval and Ndamukong Suh just sitting back and saying, well, let me see who's good, and if they need help, I'll come in season?
Potentially. Jadeveon Clowney, right? Unless he signed in the last couple of days.
He's out there.
Couple of Super Bowl MVPs, Nick Foles and Joe Flacco. So there's a lot of guys out there, big name guys. It's interesting what you say, John, in regards to how Sue and Joseph came in last year. I think it depends on the player and his kind of where he is in his career. Like Leonard Fournette might want to be in camp and play. A guy like Clowney or a guy like Robert Quinn is at the tail end of his career, but he's another one who's out there and available. Maybe they go that route. It also depends on the position. I think if you're a defensive lineman, that's something that you could probably come in and you're more of a plug and play. If you're a skill position player, there's the transition a little bit of being ready, being able to play, being in great shape, knowing the system and all that. So I think it depends, but there are certainly going to be some guys who may want to do that. And then other guys who want to wait for an injury, right? They'll wait for an injury. And then there's with Zeke Elliott, the thought has been all along that he's going to eventually go back to the Cowboys. I know Dak Prescott is close with them, wants him back in Dallas. That could still happen. At what point will it happen? Will some of those backs like Elliott and Cook wait until Jacobs and Saquon Barkley figure out what they're going to do, whether they go back on the franchise tag or get a deal, and how does that affect them? I thought Hopkins would have signed by now. I guess he's just taking his time, right? DeAndre Hopkins, and trying to figure out if he's going to be New England or where else he wants to go. I would have thought that he'd want to go somewhere that has a better chance of winning than New England. We'll see how that goes. You know, Tennessee brought him in. I don't see them with any chance of a Super Bowl, but it's potentially something that I think guys can do. Wait, go ring shopping, as you said, and see how that almost worked out nicely for Joseph and Sue.
Yeah.
They got to the doorstep, but that stinking turf, right? They're still complaining about that.
Still, man. Yeah, we got to bring that up, Rob.
Yeah. No, let's not do that again. We spent 20 minutes talking about that with Mike Gill. All right. First of all, on the Jets, Jets, you're right. There is going to be a ton of pressure on the Jets this year. Rodgers, the general manager, the coach, everybody. And oh, by the way, it looks like they're going to be the Hard Knocks team. So it's going to start right away on HBO before the season ever gets going. So you are exactly right on that one, much to my chagrin. Thank you very much, Mr. Maaddi. But let me stay in that division. Let me see if I can make myself feel better. The New England Patriots go, how bad do I want to make them? All right, 7-10 this year. Out of the playoffs, last in the AFC East. Is Bill Belichick the coach again in 2024?
Well, he's chasing Don Shula's mark, and I'm sure that he would want Robert Kraft would want him to do that in New England. How many wins away is he? Is he need 2 more years? How much equity does 6 Super Bowls get you? That's the question, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking
it should.
You know,
man,
it should give you a hell of a lot.
I think it gives you a long and I know Kraft has said we got to get in the playoffs and we got to make the playoffs, and he said all those things to seemingly put pressure on Bill Belichick. I would be surprised if Bill Belichick left the New England Patriots not on his own doing. I would be surprised if he ended up, whenever his time is to leave New England, that it came down from Robert Kraft. I think Bill Belichick has earned as arguably the greatest head coach in the history of the NFL with 6 championships, albeit all with Tom Brady, who went on and won one without him. And now we know that it's more Brady than Belichick. Still, I would be surprised if he doesn't have the ability, has built up enough goodwill, equity, whatever you want to call it, to be able to leave on his own terms, whether it's in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But there's a heck of a lot of pressure, I think, on the New England Patriots and Belichick to figure out, Bill O'Brien's there now. Is Mac Jones going to be the guy after a nice rookie year and a subpar sophomore season? Can they get in the playoffs? And I look at them as more of a 7-8 win team than a 9 or 10 win team.
By the way, Rob, Bill's at 298. He's still 328, Don Shula. So he's still got a ways to go, which is kind of amazing. And Andy Reid, by the way, is going to surpass Tom Landry this year for 4th all time.
Ooh.
Andy Reid.
He's not only a Hall of Famer, but when you get into, and I may even do this now in the days leading into training camp with not much happening, do some rankings, right? You rank your head coaches, you rank your quarterbacks. Depending on the criteria of rankings, Andy Reid is arguably the best coach in the NFL right now. If your criteria is 2023 going into that season, if you go career, you got to go Belichick.
Yeah.
But if you go right now, going into 2023, who's your number 1 head coach? It's Andy Reid.
Yeah, I would have no problem with that ranking. Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches of all time, and he's somehow underrated in this town, or at least because he didn't get over the top. But the consistency, and that was his whole philosophy, as you know, Rob, just if you're good every year and you get into the playoffs, at some point the stars are going to align. That was Andy's whole philosophy. It aligned in Kansas City with the help of Patrick Mahomes. That's a big part of it. But, I mean, to be that good, that consistent year in and year out, that to me defines great coaching. And everybody has bad years because it's cyclical, the talent. Belichick's had him, Andy's had him if you coach long enough. But, man, we're lucky to see these 2 coaches in this generation. These are 2 of the best ever.
And Andy hasn't had him in Kansas City. I believe they've made the playoffs all but 1 year.
Yeah, all but 1 year. So
And that year they didn't. They still had They may have been 9-7. I may be maybe 10-6. I might be off with that one.
and by the way, remember how bad they were before Andy got there.
Yeah.
People forget that, Rob.
Yeah.
And they were 9-7 the 1 year. So he's Mike Tomlin did in Kansas City. Never had a losing season in Kansas City. Pretty impressive because of where they were. The Romeo Cornell team was 2-14. I remember that team. They were a bad football team, and Andy got there.
And they also had a lot of issues. There was the player who came to the building and with a gun.
Javon Belcher. Yeah.
And so that was all the last. He completely turned that culture around, turned everything around. He's instantly a Hall of Fame, a first ballot Hall of Famer. Andy Reid will be, and my question is how long is he going to do it? And I think that's what everybody is asking Andy. And there was some thought or some talk, hey, that might be it after the last Super Bowl, but not as long as Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and that crew is still hanging around. Andy can chase a third and a fourth ring and continue to do it the way he has been. And I think Mahomes is certainly the difference maker for him. We see that in what he's been able to do in his career. It's where do you put Doug Peterson on that 2023 head coach list? I gotta have him top 5.
Yeah, Doug's a very good coach. Doug's a very good coach.
I don't know if I could get him into the top 5. All right, Maaddi, man, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. How about his replacement up there in Green Bay? When Rodgers took over for Favre, he went 6-10 the first year. McCarthy had been coaching a couple of years, somewhat similar to LaFleur. LaFleur's putting a couple extra over McCarthy. You got any feeling on Jordan Love? People ask me this on my show. I get Packer fans calling me on my national show and go, what do you think of Jordan Love? I don't know. I haven't seen him. He's a mystery man as far as I'm concerned. The couple of games he stepped in when Rodgers got hurt. Have you been able to draw any conclusions on Jordan Love? Are they going to have that succession/success in Green Bay that they've had for the last couple of decades?
I think it's going to be difficult to match the level of play that Aaron Rodgers and then before that Brett Favre gave him. To go from Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer to Jordan Love and expect Hall of Fame career out of that.
That's what Packer fans are expecting, yes.
That I don't know what that cheese is doing to their heads out there in Green Bay, if that's what you're thinking. I got to see more. I'm like you, Jody, and I think we all are in the same boat. When Jordan Love's been in the league now and hasn't done anything but a couple cameo appearances, we don't know how much has he learned. He's been able to sit there and soak in all the knowledge he possibly could from Aaron Rodgers and learning the system and understanding it. And it's not like going out there as a rookie. He's going to go out there as an experienced guy who's been in the league, who hasn't played, but he's getting the reps now. I think he's ahead of the game in that sense, but I don't know if he's going to go out there and instantly be a Pro Bowl quality type player. I think it's going to be difficult to do that. It's hard. There's got to be a drop off when you go from Hall of Famer like Aaron Rodgers to a young man like Jordan Love, who hasn't done much in this league yet.
Well, I always argue, Rob, that Green Bay has the most spoiled fan base in the country because they have had literally over 30 consecutive years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. They don't know how the other half lives. Over 30 consecutive years of Hall of Fame level quarterback play. So that's why you said you can't replace a Hall. Well, they already did it. So they expected they would go from Favre to Rodgers to Jordan Love. I'm with you. But I will say this. I think Jordan Love's going to be better than people think. And that division is wide open. Wide open. Because it looks like Minnesota's rebuilding. I like Detroit, but they got a bunch of gambling suspensions they got to deal with. Chicago, I don't think they're ready with Justin Fields. But somebody's got to win that division. Why not the Packers?
Yeah, it is I think it is a wide open division, and I'm on the Lions bandwagon, but I also still think that Minnesota's got a shot, and see if if they can overcome some of their losses. But it might be one of those divisions where top to bottom are separated by 4 games, 7 wins, 6-10, 7-10. I don't see anybody coming out of there with more than a 10-7 record. They're going to beat each other up a little bit. I would lean towards the Lions, Minnesota, Green Bay, Bears 3-4, or Bears, Packers 3-4, either way. But I think it could be one of those divisions where going into December, it's anybody's. And depending on how you finish up, whoever's healthiest, you lose a starting quarterback, you lose Kirk Cousins, you lose Jared Goff, and either one of those teams are a little bit, they're going to come down a notch. And it's going to always be a matter of who's healthiest. Can Jordan Love step in there and lead him to an 8-9 division championship? Potentially. I just don't see him leading them to a 10-7, 9-8, or 11-6 type of season at this point.
All right, last thing, bring it back to the Eagles for you, Maaddi. If I said that the Eagles' road to a return to the Super Bowl is going to be difficult because they've got the hardest schedule of any team in the NFL. Now, that's based on last year's record of the teams that they're playing this year. But like we just said with Minnesota, we really think Minnesota's going 13-4 again? Probably not, but they're playing Minnesota, but we're counting them as a 13-4 opponent as of now. If I say it's going to be difficult because of their strength of schedule, you go, Jody, strength of schedule is irrelevant. You got to do the strength of schedule week by week by week to see who they're playing, and only in-season strength of schedule is the only thing that matters. What is your thoughts on trying to evaluate how a team's going to play on the upcoming season as per their strength of schedule?
Yeah, I don't put much stock into it at all. I think to answer a question, the Eagles will have a tough challenge, or however you want to pose it, going back. Strength of schedule will be 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere down on my list. It's got to do more with some of the losses on defense. It's the fact that it's hard to lose a Super Bowl and get back to it the very next year. Only 2 teams have ever lost the Super Bowl and won it the following year. Hasn't happened since the Patriots, and before that it was the Dolphins. Losing Gannon and Steichen, and I know it's the coordinators, it's not the head coach, but I think there's a drop off there. And you pointed out everything that I would want to say about strength of schedule. It is in season. This isn't the same 13-win Minnesota team. Some of these teams there's been a drop off with some, and some of these teams that are considered who had 4 seasons last year are going to be better this year. So it is more week to week. I don't care much about their schedule. I care about how they're playing week in and week out and what they can do. As Jalen Hurts has said, this team's got to find its identity for itself. What they did last year doesn't matter, but I think it sure does matter a heck of a lot in the fact that they know what they can accomplish. They know they can be that front runner from week 1 all the way throughout the season. That's what they were last year. They were the big dog in the NFC. They carried the way. They were the team leading the pack, and I think they learned a lot from that, and they also learned a lot from how they fell short at the end. Cleats aside, and Gannon being concerned or focused on his next job aside, whatever it may be.
Gotta get the cleats in there. Yeah. At Rob Maaddi, the great Rob Maaddi. Thanks for taking some time on your way to the gym. I see we got a Faith on the Field live down if you're in Central Florida, if you're in Tampa, with Jets cornerback Bryce Hall. That's coming up Monday, July 10th. You can see Rob down there. Check him out, the AP Pro Football Podcast. Saw you had Jalen Hurts on relatively recently. Any big name guest on the podcast coming up?
Well, we'll get back into it in the next couple of weeks. It was a great conversation with Jalen. Really enjoyed that conversation. They can go back and catch the whole thing with Jalen back anywhere you find your podcast. And I put enough clips, I think, out there. That did interrupt my vacation. I will say that. I did say, hey, you want to talk to Jalen? I did take a minute off to talk to Jalen Hurts for about 15 minutes one day. But maybe this week I'll get to writing about it, because I wasn't about to sit there and do more work than just talk to Jalen Hurts.
All right. So, more important than talking to Jalen Hurts, more important than McMullen and McDonald, more important. Are you getting over to the Trop at all this week? Come on, your Phillies are in your town. They're down your neck of the woods. Come on, tell me you're going to be at the Phillies Rays.
I'm going to have to. But you know what I had to do this week? Because I have YouTube TV down here, and you can't get the Rays home games. So I got the MLB app. So I watch the Phillies on my phone. Or my wife never lets me have baseball on the big TV. It's got to be the secondary TV, right? You can't have, so it's on the phone, it's on the pad, it's on the computer. But now they black out the Rays games. So I'm like, how do I get the Rays-Phillies series? I got to watch Nola Eflin. I know we got a barbecue and there's 20 people in the house. I got to watch Nola Eflin. So I figured out there was, for all my Philly fan friends who are living in Florida, if you're watching this, you got to get Fubo TV.
What do you call it?
Fubo.
Fubo TV.
It's a Fubo, right?
Okay.
Whatever it is.
Okay.
You get a 7-day free trial, and you can watch the Phillies Rays series, and then you don't need to pass that 7 days. So I did that yesterday. Watched almost every pitch of my guys. I love Nola and Eflin. Had a great relationship with both of those guys, so it was nice to see that back.
Nice game in the system. Nice. The NFL's going to suspend you 6 games.
Well, Maaddi, man, I hope you make it over to the Trop for one of these next couple of days. Get your workout in today. Thank you very much for hopping on us. We'll get back to you when camp.
Thanks, Rob.
That's Rob Maaddi, lead writer for the Associated Press, who, not only a Philly, when I say Philly guy, I mean Philly, Philly, but also Phillies. I've spent time with Rob down in Clearwater covering the Phillies in spring training. He loves his Phillies as well. All right, Mac coming back. Johnny Mac, Jody Mac, you know what we got to do. Put a bow on today's show.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, I go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You got your Mac guys here on Birds 365. Good to be back with you guys. Do me a favor. We got 200 and change of you guys tuned in right now, streaming in. hit the like button on the way out. Help Johnny and I out with our algorithm before the season gets underway. We want to try and pump up the numbers a little bit so that we can be here for you guys all season long. And I specifically asked that question to Rob before we got out the door because I fielded a call this weekend on WIP about one of the toughnesses of the Eagles' upcoming season is going to be the fact that they have to play such a tough schedule, that they're playing a first-place schedule. Johnny, that's one of the most overrated things in the National Football League. And a little less overrated than it used to be because people have been throwing that out there for you. Oh, first-place schedule. Oh, they got to play a first-place. It's 2 friggin' games. There are 2 games that are affected on your schedule by where you finished the year before. Those 2 other teams that finished in the same position in your conference that you're not playing the whole division. So this year for the Eagles, those 2 teams would be the Minnesota Vikings, who last year went 13-4. If I set the over-under at 12.5 on the Vikings, which way you going this year, John?
I might go under 8. Yeah, I forget about 12.5.
Yeah, so a team that's probably going to be anywhere between 3, 4, 5 games less than they were last year. Oh, the Eagles have to play the Vikings. Oh, my God. What a task.
And the home opener, by the way. And the home opener where the fans are going to be fired up. That's one of the easiest situations of the year for the Eagles, if you ask me.
And their other inherited game because of where they finished in the standings last year, they get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who last year were quarterbacked by a guy by the name of Brady that you might have heard of. This year, good luck with the former number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL draft. Do you think Trask has any chance of winning that job down there?
No. I think it's going to be
Baker. Baker's going to be the guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have faith that Baker Mayfield's going to be any good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
No, but I do have faith that he's better than Kyle Trask, so I don't think it's going to be much of a competition.
I'll go out on a limb and say Kyle Trask outplays him in preseason and is their starter. By the way,
well, he might outplay him in preseason because Baker's probably not going to play. They're going to treat him like he's Tom Brady. So.
Either one of those guys not beating the Eagles during the year, and at least the other one is the Kansas City Chiefs, who they kind of need to.
By the way, Jody, I'm getting some Andy Reid hate, as I always get from Eagles fans, which is one of the most bizarre things ever to me. But anyway, which is, it's nice to have Patrick Mahomes, but he only wins because he has Patrick Mahomes. He was in Kansas City for 4 years before Patrick Mahomes ever got there.
Alex Smith
won 11-9. The 1 year he missed the playoffs, 9-7, 11 and 12 games. The 4 years before Patrick Mahomes even arrived.
And, oh, by the way, Andy Reid calling the shots in Kansas City.
To get him.
And he's able to ride Patrick Mahomes is because he picked Patrick Mahomes. Yes. He traded up to get Patrick Mahomes, even though he had Alex Smith as he won 10 and 11 games year after year after year. So how do you shortchange Andy Reid?
I don't know, but they do it. They do it.
Doesn't make sense to me. All right, partner, I say we do this again tomorrow. You in?
Let's do it.
Let's see who we got tomorrow. Oh, Vinny Surratt, Vinny C is going to join us from the 105.3 The Fan. I should know it off the top of my head. Former general manager of the Washington at the time.
Now
Redskins,
Commanders.
Now
Redskins
football team. Now Commanders. Vinny Serrato is going to join us tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to talking to you guys again. Thanks for streaming in with us today here on Birds 365. We'll talk to you in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.